In the quest to perform at the highest level, you know you need to build a strong foundation of healthy habits. Things that are basic, but so crucial if you're to have constant energy, focus, and motivation. But when chasing your dreams, for all the healthy habits you build, the positive impact they bring can be demolished by just one single bad habit. Things that you may not even be aware you're doing are building up in your subconscious. These things, if left unchecked, will destroy your ability to keep growing, improving, and ultimately will lead to a lifetime of wasted potential. But if you become aware of these things and make active steps to break them, then you will accelerate your progress towards your ultimate goals. And the first of these habits seems pretty harmless at first, but that's the thing with habits, they sneak up on you very quickly. If you do something once without any immediate repercussions, then that thing will happen again and again until you find yourself unable to break the cycle of it. And this first habit is complaining. I get it, sports can be tough and the competition fierce, but constant complaining drains your mental energy and prevents you from being able to focus on the game. It shifts your mindset from a growth-oriented one to a fixed one, hindering your ability to learn from mistakes and make improvements. In March 2023, Bruno Fernandes was scolded by the media for his endless complaining during Man United's 7-0 thumping against Liverpool. You can understand his frustration at being humiliated, but as the acting captain at the time, his attitude absolutely stunk. This performance of constant whinging epitomised the reality that so many Man United fans knew, that Fernandes was a serial complainer. He's world class when everything is going well, but the second something goes wrong, his toys are thrown out the pram. And for someone who's supposed to be a captain, this is the exact opposite behaviour required of a responsible leader. In his first 18 months at the club, Fernandes burst onto the scene and became United's most dazzling player. But over the past 2 seasons, despite the occasional breathtaking performance, he's been distinctly average a lot of the time. He's arguably no better a player now at the age of 28 than what he was at 25, which obviously shouldn't be the case. And one of the main reasons for this is his constant use of so much mental and physical energy on complaining. The reason complaining is so harmful is because it shifts blame onto external sources, meaning you fail to take responsibility for your actions and their outcomes. If you constantly point the finger at someone else, you develop huge blind spots about your own weaknesses and shortcomings. And obviously if you do this, then you'll never improve, and over time just plateau and actually get worse. But a simple way to break the cycle of complaining is the 3-strike rule. The idea is that you only allow yourself to complain 3 times during a training session or performance, and once you've used up all of those complaints, you can only focus on finding practical solutions to the things causing you frustration. This allows you to get some of those frustrations out and the tension that comes with those, but it then forces you to take more responsibility, to focus on how you can use your influence to change the situation for the better. Now, the second habit is one that pretty much every athlete has faced at some point in their career, and that is expecting to be the main character all the time. Despite wanting to individually perform our best, team sports require an endless amount of collaboration. If you're constantly seeking the spotlight and ignoring your teammates, it just creates an unhealthy team environment. And sometimes you have to realize that your best role is a supporting cast member rather than the lead actor. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that's what can sometimes lead to better individual and team performance overall. A prime example of this is Kyrie Irving. After winning the NBA title with LeBron James for the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2016, Irving began to grow resentful at playing second fiddle. He wanted to become the focal point of offense and felt that his talents were being overlooked. So he demanded a trade, and he got that trade to go to the Boston Celtics. But again, his lust to be the main character all the time started having a destructive impact on both the relationship he had with his teammates and also the fan base. After a frustrating loss to the Orlando Magic in 2019, Celtics fans noticed Irving throwing a massive fit because he couldn't get the ball for the last shot. And he would go on to openly criticize his teammates without taking any responsibility himself for bad performances. And we could do a whole 15-minute video on how this main character syndrome that Kyrie often shows has led to his teammates feeling he's impossible to play with, and that his selfishness has caused every team he's been on to not fulfill its potential. While it's good to want to take on the responsibility of being that guy or that girl, no one in team sports can achieve anything without their teammates. Even the great Michael Jordan knew that it was better to palm the ball off to Steve Kerr to sink the title-winning jumper in the 1997 NBA Finals. But you might be thinking, well, this doesn't apply to me because I perform in an individual sport. Well, even if that's the case, it's still not always appropriate to give off main character energy, because chances are you still train with a team or club despite performing as individuals. And anyone who has a ridiculously large ego opens themselves up to all kinds of problems, like not being able to take on feedback and coaching points, or you make too many unnecessary risks or impulsive decisions because of allowing confidence to tip over into arrogance. And in more cases than not, this will lead to performances that just come crashing down. To stop this dangerous habit, one of the most simple but effective things you can do is switch the personal to the collective. What this involves is just changing your language about all aspects of your training and performance. So you want to eliminate personal pronouns such as I, my, or me, and change those to collective pronouns such as our, we, and us. So instead of thinking and saying, I'm going to do this, you need to think and say, we're going to do this. And this is huge because if you're the star or main player on the team, what this does is it helps elevate your teammates because because they start feeling more part of the action and that their contribution matters just as much as yours. And it's also a great way of further motivating coaches to keep helping you. When I've worked with a running coach in the past, I've always made sure that after particularly hard weeks or training sessions to message him saying, we're on the right track. And this kept him engaged and feeling part of the journey that we were working on together for a particular goal race. So habit 3 is more of an obvious one: device addiction. Back in 2018, only a year after his 135 million move to Barcelona, Ousmane Dembele was in hot water for missing training because he stayed up all night playing video games with his friends. This was a 21-year-old man, and he didn't have to be at the training ground until 11 AM. And obviously his career has been pretty bad, if we're being honest. Sure, he's had injuries, but his attitude has forever been a problem. And he, like many other athletes, are wasting their potential by becoming addicted to screens. You see, the life of a pro athlete is one where you've actually often got a lot of free time. You're at the training ground till 2 or 3 PM, and then depending on the sport and team, you may not have to be in until 10 AM the next day. You have hours and hours of free time. But an increasing amount of athletes are spending those hours becoming addicted to video games. One of the main problems this causes, like it did for Dembele, is sleep deprivation. A survey of thousands of NCAA athletes in 2019 found that athletes reported an average of 6 hours and 15 minutes of sleep on a typical in-season weeknight. For someone training like a pro, that is not enough to recover both physically and mentally. And not surprisingly, most student athletes in that survey reported arriving to college already feeling overwhelmed by all they have to do. If you sleep poorly, you can guarantee you're not going to have a perfect day. You'll feel sluggish, you'll crave more sugar and junk food, and you won't be as motivated. So if this goes on for days, weeks, and years, that compounds to thousands of hours of not optimally used time to fulfill your athletic potential. Other studies have found that on average, student athletes spend 5 to 7 hours a day on their phones. And a significant proportion of them report feelings of anxiety, both when on their phones, but also when separated from them. And this is resulting in all kinds of issues that coaches are increasingly seeing among Gen Z athletes, particularly an inability to concentrate and focus for a long period of time. Coaches also say that basic listening is a challenge for Gen Z athletes in their training compared to previous generations. And they believe that this generation of players have difficulty expressing their emotions, are shy, and lack basic conversational skills. If you add all these things together, it's a horrible recipe for failure. Because if you don't have the ability to concentrate or focus during even a practice, then you've got no hope during actual performances. You won't have the mental sharpness to make instantaneous decisions and movements that decide whether you're victorious or a loser. But there are tons of hacks and strategies out there to eliminate addiction to phones and video games. Obviously, in the most extreme cases, you'll need professional help. But simple starting points can be deleting certain apps off your phone, or using apps that lock your phone completely for set periods of time, or getting your parents to lock away your games controller or shutting off the internet after a certain time of night. You basically want to add friction to the behavior. Okay, so habit 4 is another common one that unfortunately a lot of people break, usually once it's too late. And that is refusing help. Even if you've got no interest in UFC, you've probably seen the bizarre transformation of Conor McGregor over the past couple of years. After suffering a terrible leg break in his last fight in 2021, McGregor has beefed up tremendously, and speculation has built over him using steroids or human growth hormone. This is due to a complete change in his entire physical appearance. Alongside this, a number of interviews and public appearances show McGregor to be acting erratically, with many presuming he's been abusing cocaine and alcohol. And he is no longer able to speak freely with the amusing charisma he grew a reputation for, and often appears unable to string a sentence together. Despite being called out countless times online, with many actually showing legitimate concern for him and calls for him to seek professional help, McGregor does nothing but just bite back and refuse that anything is wrong or that he's taking substances. And unfortunately, the longer this goes on, fears will grow at McGregor's long-term well-being. He could be on a pathway to absolute self-destruction, where not only his career but his entire life could be at risk. And what this comes down to is the flat-out denial of even entertaining the idea that he needs help. As athletes, there's always been a stigma of needing or seeking help, particularly when it refers to mental health. Many still see seeking help as a sign of weakness, but what you find time and time again is that when someone eventually does seek out help, they just wish that they sought it out earlier. This was seen with Dele Alli. After years of his mysterious downfall, his recent interview with Gary Neville revealed a range of mental health struggles that had built up because of unresolved childhood trauma. Years of trying to escape through partying finally caught up with him, despite teammates trying to get him to seek help or open up about what was really going on. And in Dele's case, of course, it's incredibly difficult to open up and get help for the things that he'd experienced. But for a lot of athletes, they think of themselves as indestructible, that they can resolve all their issues themselves. But the truth is, none of us can. It actually shows more mental strength in seeking help rather than just powering through. true. Ronnie O'Sullivan, arguably the greatest snooker player of all time, proved this in seeking the support of a sports psychologist in 2011. He was at a point in his career where he could no longer deal with the self-sabotage that almost led him to walking away from the sport entirely. Despite being a 3-time world champion, he had a career plagued by substance abuse, outbursts, and moments of crumbling under pressure. But after seeking help to resolve his deep-rooted self-esteem and confidence issues, he became a changed man, winning back-to-back world title championships in 2012 and 2013. Don't get me wrong, it's tough to seek help, but you have to be open to it. Ask to speak to someone that you're particularly close with, such as a friend, family member, or a coach that you really trust. The hardest part is the first ask, but once you get over that, everything else becomes so much easier and you'll soon be back to your best. And the final habit is one that actually causes a lot of the issues that we've discussed in this video, and that is a lack of mental preparation. Your mental strength is often more important than your physical and technical prowess. Without proper mental preparation, stress and pressure will overpower your abilities, leading to performance blunders at crucial moments. How many times have you felt completely ready physically, in the best shape of your life, and then everything just comes crashing down because of one early mistake or a minor distraction that just throws you off slightly? In not mentally preparing, you open yourself up to failure because you haven't put yourself in the right headspace to make the best decisions, regulate your stress anxiety levels, or ensure your focus is finely tuned to the task at hand. Before any training session or match, you do a physical warm-up to warm up the body. But most athletes don't do a mental warm-up. So what happens? Your brain is rusty, rigid, and not working optimally by the time your performance kicks off. And this bad habit is perhaps the most important. A lack of mental preparation is a surefire way to kill any chance of putting in a peak performance. So to overcome this, I really recommend you watch this next video on how to mentally prepare for any sports match or event.